go-to source for nerd knowledge in the 21st century. I'm your host, Steve Pugh, and join with me always is the impeccable and are you a red dragon or you a Charizard over there, David?
Red Dragon.
Red Dragon?
Red Dragon.
Put the hood up. Put the hood up for us. So
I can't get it over my headphones.
I just want to see it again. It almost looked like a demon the first time I saw it. That's awesome. I do like it. I do like it. And coming back for her third time is the wonderful, the impeccable, the amazing, the adorable Miss Sarah Jones. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I am fantabulous. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. So I'm glad you got to come on. I like the fact that I have two, I try to exclude myself when it comes to the algorithms, but I definitely say you guys are two Star Wars buffs. And our subject of the night is sequels, prequels, and spinoffs. Kind of talking about them, if they're a fan service or just kind of a cash grab. And Book of Boba, I think, is one of those subjects that I think is like crucial. Like I want multiple opinions as much as possible. But before we get into all that stuff, what have you been up to, madam? It has been a little bit. I think the last time we had you on, David was talking about going to Dragon Con. I think he mentioned it a few times. I'm not sure.
At least once or twice, right?
Yeah,
As always. It's that pretentiousness.
No, David's not pretentious at all.
Never. Honestly, I've just kind of had my nose down doing mostly, work teacher stuff. However, I've kind of driven headfirst into building my Ahsoka Siege of Mandalore costume. I'm working on it. I've got her montrals done. I'm working on the armor. Having a couple friends print some shin armor for me down here in Fort Myers. But aside from that, everything's been pretty relaxed around here, just chugging along.
Nice. Do you already have her lightsabers or are you going to have to get them?
I do. That was the first thing I bought. I actually talked to Dave about that before I got them.
Which ones did you buy?
Hey, man, I ended up going with the Ultra Sabers.
Okay.
I like Ultra Saber.
I do. I really like the quality. I'm not a very big person.
Yeah.
So they are a little large for me, but the quality is great. The weight, the heft is really good. The blades are beautiful. I couldn't be more happy with them.
You went with a white light with them, or did you?
No, they're blue. They're blue for
blue?
the season 7. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
did you get the board in it that you can change the color, or do you have to manually pull out the LEDs?
I have to manually pull out the LEDs if I want to change color,
which
I'm fine with. Style. I mean, I don't really plan on changing them.
Right.
This is the only Ahsoka I really want to do.
Right.
I don't really have any desire to do Mandalorian Ahsoka, so I really like her season 7. I am no Jedi,
right.
Lady Tano kind of thing.
Yeah. I have a few of them. I have one of my favorites is actually the double hilt. I have the double hilt, and I have a bunch of just I went and did the random grab bag ones, but I always. Yeah, I have one that has sound and has the switch out, but I just prefer doing the poor man's way of just switching out the LEDs if I want to and everything, because most of the time I usually don't end up switching them out anyways.
Right.
But the mandrels and everything, how long did that take you to make?
I've been working on them on and off for probably 3 months or so. It's a foam. Well, thank you. It's a foam base. There's batting inside. There's actually, the beads that they put in weighted blankets.
Yeah.
That's what I used for the bottoms of the actual montrals, where the tips are, to give them movement. So whenever I move, they move.
That's awesome.
It's really, really cool. I covered it in fabric, and then I covered it in Creature Cast, which is a great alternative to latex if you have an allergy, or silicone if you don't want to pay the price and you don't have the ability for silicone, because I was not that brave. But Creature Cast was really awesome. Then I just painted them. And most of my armor's Sintra. I had a bunch left over from my Mando, and so I finally depleted all my Sintra from that one piece that I got from you ages ago, Dave. So it is now no more. But yeah, that's the haul over.
All right. All right. David, have you been up to too much? I know I kind of cut you off there. Did you want to ask Sarah something?
No,
Oh,
I was
no.
I was wondering what she had them filled with, and so you made a foam mold, or did you just
Yeah.
Okay.
I started with a foam mold. It was actually based off of Pepakura.
Okay.
So I started with that. It's a lot easier than a Pepakura Mando helmet for sure.
Right.
And then I built the foam up over that and put the fabric over it and filled it with batting and those weighted beads.
Nice.
I didn't put too much of the weighted beads in it because I knew it would be too heavy and it would hurt my neck after, long hours in kit. And I didn't want to do that to myself. So I kept a little bit out, but there's enough for movement and weight. So they look real whenever I wear them.
Right. And so then you just have a wig cap that would go under you would put on and put the Montrose over them.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Pretty easy.
And then did you airbrush them or hand paint them?
I actually hand painted them.
Okay.
Drew on all of the markings just from reference photos and found the perfect blue color that matched. And I'm very pleased with them. Even if they're not Rebel Legion standard at some point, I'm still pretty happy with them.
I think they look
fine.
awesome.
They look good.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
Appreciate.
No worries. David, you been up to anything?
Nothing new, I don't think, since we talked last.
Yeah. I actually, so it was the wife's birthday. So last week. So we went out and we went axe throwing, which is the first time I've ever done that. I don't know if you guys have ever been axe throwing before. First time, it was a heck of an experience. Like we went on a nice little date. We went out and went out for dinner and everything. And so she's like, let's go axe throwing. We scheduled it. And they're like, hey, you're going to be with a couple other couples. I'm like, all right, whatever, not a big deal. And the first couple that showed up was this dieseled out, like, I kid you not, he was 6 foot tall, like 400 pounds, pure muscle, in the most tight, like flannel shirt. He's got that thick, like black, just like perfectly trimmed lumberjack beard. He's even wearing like a knit cap and everything. And he's got the most disgruntled look on his face. And he's over there with his, I thought it was his wife, it was his girlfriend, just like looking at me. And I look at the guy that we're with and I said, screw you. I didn't use those exact words. I used a lot more colorful words. I said, are you freaking kidding me? You're teaming me up with that dude, the freaking lumberjack? Are you kidding me? This is my first time. And he just like comes over and he's like, hi, Adam. And I'm like, you're going to kick my ass. And he was the nicest guy in the entire world. We had an absolute blast. Turns out he was a former Marine. And that's why he's all like this number, doing like the buffed out guy, works at Amazon. It's just like the nicest guy. Had a great time. I've learned a lesson though. I am absolutely terrified of my wife. If she's ever 20 feet away from me and has an axe, I know I'm a dead man, because let me tell you what, she was hitting that bullseye like it was going out of style, like so well that my instructor looked over at me and said, don't ever piss her off. And I said, no, yeah, right. And it only got better the more she drank too. Like I tried getting her drunk, and like, I'm like, here, drink this, happy birthday. And other people were like, it's your birthday, drink. And she just got whoosh, like she's throwing them behind her back kind of stuff and everything. Like she was literally throwing them one-handed and getting it in. However,
it's awesome.
Oh, it was absolutely
your wife
amazing.
Is my hero.
Oh, dude, she is so cool. I love her, and the fact we had an absolute blast. I got to finally watch the Eternals. Watched it on Disney Plus. My honest opinion of this: it's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie. I think the getting to know the characters, while I understand how they did everything and I appreciate how they did everything, I feel like this movie could have been cut down by an hour if they had just done a little tidbit like on Disney Plus for each character, like a mini series, maybe like a do 20 minute episode, because
there are 10 characters.
Yeah, it was so much, and it's you didn't get to learn about, like, I liked Druid, I liked Sprite, but we didn't get to feel like we got a little bit of that emotional tension with Sprite and how she really felt underwhelmed being 14 or like however young she was supposed to be, like look like I think it was 14, like, and or Athena, learning more about her, and there's all of them. I felt like we didn't get to appreciate that more, and they tried to force that a little bit more. And then the Celestials and the Deviants, and where they tried to pull the like the intro Star Wars style thing, where they just like talking a little bit about giving you that background without actually giving you a proper background. It's like, all right, it wasn't bad, but it could have been a lot better. Not the worst movie,
Right.
like not the worst Marvel movie I've seen, but it's not the best. It's not even close. And I feel like there was no Kit Harington's character, the Black Knight wasn't necessity in this movie at all. There was no point in having him in. It was fun, like he was a little bit of comedic relief, but it just felt like it wasn't necessary. I mean, I don't know what your guys' opinions were.
I didn't make it through the movie. To be
Really?
honest with you.
Wow.
Nope.
Ugh.
Could not get through it. I just kept losing focus on it. And I don't know if maybe later I need to go back and just try to rewatch it. But I could not stick with it for some reason. I don't know. Sometimes the movies are like that.
I went to see it in the theater.
Do you feel like it was worth it? Honestly.
I don't know if it's worth it. I enjoy a theatrical experience. I enjoy seeing, especially an MCU movie. I enjoy seeing them in a theater, and when it was in the theaters 3 months ago or whenever it was, I mean, there was literally me and 8 other people in the auditorium. So, but it was on the big screen, and it was, it was big and loud and all that. I think the problem with the Eternals was it was very ambitious, and it tried to do a lot, and it's the whole Black Knight thing is a stop on the roadmap, and I know that I talk about the Marvel roadmap a lot, but I think that was a lot of it. And with the coming of the multiverse into phase 4 and phase 5 of the MCU, they are constantly ratcheting up the stakes. And so now that they have to establish that there is some, existential threat to not only to a certain country, or not only to a certain group of people, or a planet. Now it's the entire universe is at stake. And that's kind of the thing that Marvel comics do. They always have to have a bigger bad guy come along. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's nice to have a very low stakes, small focused movie like Deadpool, even though Deadpool is not an MCU movie, or like Ant-Man, right? But then eventually Ant-Man is going to expand into this thing where, they have to alter reality or blah, 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 blah. I mean, I liked Eternals as a movie, but I don't have any attachment to the characters from the comics, number one. And number two, I think it, like all the other Marvel, and Marvel has been doing this now for 26 movies or whatever the number of movies is. The movies aren't self-contained. The movies they're part of an event. They're part of this whole thing that you have to consider. And if you skip one or two, you miss something, and I don't know if you stayed through the end credits or you watched through the end credits. They're setting up Blade.
Yeah.
They're setting up Blade's return to the MCU. Even though you don't see him, you hear him off screen it's either the mid credits or the end credits scene.
It's the second. Yeah, it's the second one.
So, I mean, that's kind of what Marvel has become. And, I every time I go to an MCU movie, I always make a joke that the credits are rolling and people are leaving, #amateurs,
I always love those posts of yours, Dave. It's my favorite.
But that's
every
just how
time
it
a new
is.
Marvel movie comes out. Every time.
Yeah.
Like they checked off a lot of boxes. I'll give them this. They checked off a lot of boxes. They even did some stuff that I was like, wow, Marvel has a sex scene. Like I was like, wow, they really did that. okay. I mean, we're all adults here. We know these things happen, but it's just like, it was like,
Are you sure we're all adults?
well, sometimes I question us, in our dragon pajamas, onesies,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I was kind of referring to that guy.
Hey, it's cold here.
However, I can't say anything. I dress up, so
no, but it caught me off guard. I like, in a way that was like, oh, well, this shouldn't catch me off guard, but it did. They had, I don't know if they've ever openly showed a gay event or like a gay superhero in any of the movies before, but we got one like right there. He was kissing his husband.
Right.
All right. And then we have I was looking up her name. I was trying to find her, the lady who plays Ajax, or not Ajax, the deaf one. She was I can't remember her character's name because all I keep thinking is Ajax, and that's Selma Hayek, and that wasn't her. But they had a deaf woman playing a deaf super. That was awesome.
Right.
I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Well, the other thing that Eternals also brought out is they had a predominantly brown cast. I mean, the main cast was predominantly ethnic.
But that makes sense for when they were trying to portray how these characters came in too. Like they came in at the primitive time of humanity and they evolved with it, and that makes total freaking sense.
Right, but
evolution standard.
Right.
Not just that, but representation. The MCU has been very progressive overall in terms of representation, not just in terms of brown people. And in some cases they've caught some flack because they changed MJ in the Spider-Man movies, played by Zendaya, and now MJ is not the white redhead. Now she's a black woman. And Echo, we talked about Echo and Hawkeye last time. The Maya character, she's not only deaf, played by a deaf actress, but her character is an amputee. Mm-hmm. She has a prosthetic leg. And so that's always nice to see. And we've seen some of that. There's always been, in Iron Man, Colonel Rhodes was there as kind of the token black guy. And then people lost their shit over Samuel L. Jackson playing Nick Fury, and I don't know if you remember the Nick Fury movie from the 90s played by David Hasselhoff. And so, and now if anybody other than Samuel L. Jackson were Nick Fury, people would be like, oh, I can't imagine anybody else playing this,
That's true.
Whatever.
That's so true.
So that has been nice to see. But yeah, I liked Eternals, but I did think it would have been better as either a 2-part movie or, like you had mentioned before, either introducing some characters in some webisodes, or this might have been one of those things that really should have been a 6-hour TV show, and that way they could have done some character development with all of them. You also had the one character who, I forget the character's name, who is basically dealing with PTSD. The Angelina Jolie character.
Athena.
Yes, because she was always worried about slipping back and going crazy. And the Gilgamesh character had to, was monitoring her, and he had devoted his life, for the last 5,000 years is stopping her from trying to kill everyone. Apparently
there was a lot of deep moments. Like the more and more I think about it, the more I appreciate the movie, because even like Druig, like he's like, I can stop all of this at any moment and stop the fighting, and we can step in and help humanity. And it's like, wow, you like there was all those moments. And like I said, the more and more we talk about it, the more I actually enjoyed the movie. I go, wow, I actually really, really liked it. And I did not like it, but it was just like, yeah.
And it was also directed by Chloe Zhao, who is a an Asian director, and so we've started to see some of that infiltrate the MCU. but I don't think it can, like a lot of the other MCU movies, I don't think it can be evaluated singly as as its own artwork. I think it has to be, examined and evaluated in the context of, the MCU.
Yeah. So let's, because I don't want to delve too much onto this, because we already had an episode where we were kind of talking about stuff we've seen, and this, while I love the internals, or would love to continue, we got a subject to talk about tonight, and that is prequel, sequels, and spinoffs. And I really, really want to get into this because Book of Boba is like the prime example right now of I don't know if I would consider it a spinoff of a spinoff, because Mandalorian is a spinoff of Star Wars, or it's a chapter in Star Wars, how you want to consider it. But Book of Boba is definitely a spinoff of the Mandalorian, and in some parts, it's a prequel to some of the Star Wars history. It's also continuation of Star Wars history, and it is a definite fan service. Okay, at least in my opinion, I feel like it's a fan service, because if you take everything that you know about Boba Fett before the Mandalorian, you had how much time of him, grand total, like
14 minutes.
Okay,
I mean, it's some absurdly low amount of time.
Yeah,
and he literally started a cult that you guys are both a part of. So you have a Mandalorian helmet, you have a few costumes, but it's great. He has that fandom behind him. Now we had this series, and 3 episodes are out. There'll be 4 when this episode airs, but what are your honest opinions of it? I think I'm probably going to be the negative one in this one, but I'd love to hear your guys' sides. David, we'll start with you.
Well, I enjoy it, but I'm in the bag for pretty much anything Star Wars already.
Okay.
What I have noticed, though, and I have made this statement before, that no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. And a lot of the people on my Facebook feed are, there are legitimate criticisms of the show from the standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, and from how it's depicted on the screen. The problem is that a lot of people have this notion of what they think Star Wars should be, because they have written in their head a headcanon that says that this is what Boba Fett is, and this is how it should be. And in Legends, with the old EU, Boba did this, and he was the most badass person in the world, even though he got taken out like a chump by a blind guy with a stick. Canonically.
True story.
Right? So a lot of people who are complaining, and we see this every time something new in Star Wars comes out, whether it's the prequel trilogy. And actually, you guys aren't old enough to remember this, but even back in 1983, when Return of the Jedi came out, people said, "Oh my God, what are these Ewok things? These are cute little teddy bears. They have no place in Star Wars. Star Wars sucks." If there were internet, or if there had been the internet, or if there had been Twitter in 1983, there would be people who were just enraged by Ewoks. And in fact, there's a whole thing on How I Met Your Mother where Barney talks about there being this division of Star Wars beginning with the Ewoks. So then after that, when the prequel trilogy comes out, when Phantom Menace comes out, people are like, "Oh my God, George Lucas killed Star Wars. George Lucas is awful, blah, 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 blah." And that goes on, and then it goes through, Attack of the Clones. That's a dumb name for a movie. And then it goes to Revenge of the Sith, blah, and so on and so forth. Because, Return of the Jedi, the original title of that was Revenge of the Jedi, until they figured out that Jedi shouldn't be taking revenge. So then they changed it. But anyway, so now 20 years later, there is this George Lucas renaissance after the sequel trilogy, because the sequel trilogy ruined Star Wars. Because Force Awakens was just a remake of New Hope, and Last Jedi sucks because it completely changed it. We didn't like Force Awakens because it was just the same thing over again. We wanted something different, but then they made something different, and they didn't know, not like that. And so now Star Wars sucks. And so then J.J. Abrams comes back and makes, Rise of Skywalker, and it's a safe movie, but we didn't want that either. So it's more Palpatines and Skywalkers, and Star Wars sucks, and so on. And so, when Ahsoka first appears on Clone Wars, who is this kid? Who is this bratty little kid? Who is, Star Wars does not need kids. Oh my God, Star Wars sucks. And then after they get done with Clone Wars, Ahsoka is the best thing to come out of Clone Wars series and Rebel, and then she reappears in Rebels, and now she's going to get her own show and all this other stuff. And so there is just this faction of Star Wars fan who, it's not what they wanted. And I think they expect certain things, and when they don't get what they want, they get pissed off about it. And the fact of the matter is, right now, for a long time, Lucasfilm, LFL owned, and George Lucas owned Star Wars, and they can do whatever they want with Star Wars. And in 2013, 2014, they sold Star Wars. Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney. Now Disney owns Star Wars, and they can do whatever they want. They can take the pieces. They have taken some of the pieces of Legends, and they've gone on with them, and they've discarded others. And just some people don't like it, and it's okay not to like something. That's okay. But when you're trying to tell someone that they should take their property and do what you want with it, you just need to shut up. Just be happy that there is Star Wars. I remember a time when there was not Star Wars. So
back in my day.
Yeah. But so people need to deal with that. So now that you've got me ranting on
uphill
for
both
10
ways.
minutes, but I like Book of Boba Fett. I have some problems from a storytelling perspective, but I'm reserving complete judgment till the full 8 episodes come out, and then someone can explain to me why Boba Fett would want to be a crime lord. That's my biggest question going into this. Why would he want to run Tatooine? Why would he just not want to be a bounty hunter? Once he digs his way out of the Sarlacc, go find his ship, get back in his ship, fly off the planet where he has gazillions of credits, and either retire or go kill people again.
Maybe become a crime lord is retirement for a bounty hunter like Boba Fett.
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
If you're the most successful bounty hunter in the galaxy, which according to Legends he was. Now we don't know that from the movies. He may have spent all his credits on hookers and blow. Who knows? So he might not have any money, and that's why he wants to be a crime lord. That's not explained, but whatever.
So, here's my beef with it, and I've told you guys, both of you actually now. I like the flashback stuff. The flashback stuff isn't so bad. I get it. It has that whole Dances with Wolves vibe and everything, and that's fine and dandy. It truly does.
With wolves.
But it's okay. It's a story as old as time, and I respect that. My problem was with episode 1, the cheesy fight scene. Episode 2, I don't think I had initially any true beef with it. I mean, they had the car, the train heist kind of scene, and that was all right. That was pretty not too shabby. But this one was the cliche 1970s car chase through the city. The only thing they were missing, it was that bass solo track in the background while the cars were going around, and they went through a painting, they went through chicken coops, they went through a vendor, they went through every cliche of a car's chase. That they were just missing the music. And I'm not saying it's not allowed, but you really the paint schemes that they did for the Go-Go Power Ranger hipster little teenage angst.
What's wrong with that?
It was so off from what I have. I don't want to say become, and I know I'm justifying exactly what you just said here. It was just so.
It wasn't what you expected.
Not even that. Yes, it wasn't what I expected, but how do I put this without it giving into your criticisms that you just said right now?
You can't do it without giving into my criticism.
It doesn't fit. it's so like out there random from.
But I think it fits with those
It's
characters.
It's not random, and it was intentional.
Oh, I know it was absolutely intentional. There's nothing that wasn't intentional
and it makes sense. Sarah's making a point, and I think I know where she's going with this.
Like, I really think that the reason why, like, these characters are not like characters that you would typically see on Tatooine. Yeah. Like, they're definitely out of place characters. They're like you said, that teenage angst, like, I don't want to be here anymore. This place sucks. Like, they're trying to be something that they're not. They're trying to do better for themselves, I guess, in some way. And I think the whole point is for them to not be the same thing that we would expect out of these kind of hoodlums that Boba Fett has picked up.
I absolutely agree with you. I guess it was
like they're daydreaming of a Coruscant. You know what I mean?
It was too clean. It was too shiny and chrome.
But
and
think
it was
of like
pop.
But
color.
Think of teenagers. Like teenagers that love their cars. What do? Like young men.
So you're telling me these kids couldn't afford water? They couldn't pay for water, but they can keep their cars all nice and shiny and chrome.
Clearly, you have never been to West Virginia and seen car shows.
Okay,
it's not even car shows. It is. Did you? I don't know what you called them.
In general, life in general.
I don't know what you called this clique. Every high school has a clique of kids. I don't know what they called them at your high school, but in my high school, we called them the motorheads.
Yes.
And this is in the late 80s and early 90s. And so this is right about the time when Honda and Toyota start to get into racing. It's right when drift racing starts, but there were kids at my high school who were rebuilding 70s muscle cars, whether it was a 1970 Chevy Nova or whether it was an old Thunderbird or whatever. And some of these kids, with the help of their parents, and then, and I also knew them when you get to college, they had a $3,000, 1968 Buick Skylark, or they had, a $4,000 Honda Civic. And then they put $12,000 worth of work into paint and body kits and all of that. And their cars were immaculate. And they might live in the most beat up, rundown trailer, but their car,
and have ramen noodles every night for dinner.
But their car, it had the neon lights on the underside, and it looked awesome. And you popped the hood and you looked at the engine, and it was clean as anything, and it was chromed out. That is 100% accurate for what kids would have done, and that's what these kids are. That's what the Scooby Gang in this episode. That's what they are. They are kids who are struggling to make their bills, and they're struggling to even buy water, but they have put all their money into their Vespa bike or whatever it is.
And their Bionics. We can't forget about the
that's right.
And that is and that's them. Like, to them, that's the most important thing.
That is like, all right.
And maybe, really.
And you were talking about, Sarah, you were talking about kids on this little backwater planet trying to do better for their life and not knowing what, they're in a dead end. They're in the armpit of the galaxy on this desert planet where all the water has somehow disappeared. There used to be oceans everywhere, because Boba talks about that. That is Luke Skywalker at the beginning of New Hope. That is Luke Skywalker stuck on a moisture farm, whose highlight of his day is going into Tashi Station to buy some power converters. And his buddy Biggs has gotten off the planet. Luke Skywalker is that kid. His T-16 would have been souped up and chromed out just like those kids' bikes would have been. And the other thing is that is partially an homage to George Lucas himself, because George Lucas came out of that car culture in the 50s and 60s. His first movie, American Graffiti, is made specifically about those hot rod kids. So it does make sense in the context of this universe. That is not something that is random. That is something that I believe was intentional. It was an homage to Lucas, and it is a descriptor of these kids, because the Bionic, the Bionic gang and the Scooby Gang, what do they want? They want what all kids want. They want to get off that rock, right? They want to see.
I think it says a lot about those kids.
Yes. Now, my criticism of the whole street chase and all of that is that number one, there were all the tropes, there were all the bad tropes, but again, I believe that was intentional, because the director of this episode and the first episode was Robert Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
And Robert Rodriguez we know he can make a good science fiction movie, right? Robert Rodriguez made Battle Angel Alita. He made Sin City. He made the Machete movies, and he made the Once Upon a Time in Mexico and Desperado.
Is that why we got Danny Trejo in this one? Is because of Robert Rodriguez?
I guarantee you. Yes. Yes. Because
he had to stick him in there somewhere.
Sure. Yeah. And why not? Why not as the Rancor Keeper? That was awesome.
That was fantastic. That made me happy.
So yeah, go ahead.
But the chase, I thought the chase was very Spy Kids, because that's also a Robert Rodriguez movie. And I know a lot of people didn't like that. The chase was very cheesy, but I also think that was kind of intentional and kind of an homage or a callback to something previous project. But
not everything needs to be an homage, though. Not everything needs to be an homage or a tribute or callback.
I don't disagree, but I also think that if you're going to ask a director to come in and put their stamp on an episode, that they're going to do that, and that was what he did. I think the story that they're telling overall is fine. Now, the bright paint and the chrome doesn't generally fit in with the Star Wars general aesthetic, because Star Wars goes back to something that's called the used future. Okay, and the used future is the universe looks lived in. It always does. No matter what planet they're on, it looks like somebody lives there, and that's why Tatooine, when they made New Hope, looks like a planet that's been out in the desert. Everything was weathered because it was in the desert. Alien and Blade Runner are also used future movies, as opposed to something like 2001, Space Odyssey, where the future is very antiseptic and very clean. Yeah. But I don't think that having clean speeder bikes is out of character. I think it is in character for those kids, and I think it is in character for the story. But it wasn't what people expected. And of course, my Facebook feed is lit up with people who just think that this is the worst thing that ever happened.
It's my least favorite episodes of the 3 so far. But there's
it's still my least favorite as well. Yeah. But I mean,
yeah, So, but looking at that, do you feel like Boba Fett, and this is really why I brought it up. Welcome to Tangents. Do you feel like Book of Boba is a fan service, or do you feel like this was its own unique project? I mean, obviously, the way that Disney works things, anything that is Marvel, anything that is Star Wars, it has a purpose with it. But does this show feel like it was originally designed to be a fan service or something unique?
I honestly want to lean more in the way of a fan service, just because.
Yeah.
That's just what it feels like to me with all of the things that we've had fairly recently. You know what I mean? Like Mandalorian, they felt like they needed to kind of continue that along. People were asking for more. It's kind of like, the Kenobi show that evidently is supposed to be coming up. Well, it's kind of on the same basis.
And taking to that, Solo was, they were trying to do all of the prequels, and
don't be hating on my man, okay?
I know. Solo is not nearly as bad as I didn't think it was nearly as bad as people thought. I'm not gonna lie, I might get shot here for this, but I thought episode 1 was way worse than Solo. But I didn't mind it. Like, it was predictable because it's Han Solo's background, but whatever. I was fine with it. It being, let's consider it a fan service. Do you think it's something that should have been done, or is it something that we should have just left to the imagination then? Or any of those? We'll start with Boba, then we'll add first Solo. And
yeah, I definitely think it would have been done. I think that there is that that crew of people that are never going to read any of the books. They're never going to read any of the comics. You're going to get those people. And the movies or the, the mini series or shows or whatever, they, sorry, got a young one running around the back.
That was awesome.
It's our resident T-Rex. No worries. But I feel like, there is that fan base that they're not readers. They're not going to read the comics. They're not going to read the books. They're not going to delve that deeply into something and take that much effort to look into the background like some of us will. So, having that continuation in a mini series or in a movie that they can sit down and watch in an hour and a half or once a week for 45 minutes, that's a good way to kind of link stories together for these fans.
Yeah, well, let's look at it this way too. I feel like you're depriving yourself of other sources of information when you don't do that. Like personally, if I'm that emotionally attached to a character and I know there's something else out there with them, I'm a big fan of the Warhammer 40K universe. I think I've mentioned that a few times on here. I'm a fan of a writer named Dan Abnett. He's done a lot of different stuff, and he likes to intertwine a lot of his books and his lore. And if I find something interesting, I will try to find more sources on it, and I'm able to do that. I know that's not for everybody. Right. But
no, it's definitely not. Some people don't have that attention span.
No, they totally don't. And let's look at other series here, because we have our Lord of the Rings, which is getting a prequel show on Amazon Prime eventually. You have Game of Thrones, which is getting a prequel to how, I guess, basically how the White Walkers came into being. See, but you just rolled your eyes on that. You rolled your eyes, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Is like with prequels and sequels and spinoffs and stuff. It was so horribly
done at the end. Like, just leave that one.
I'm sorry. Game of Thrones was perfectly done. You thought Game of Thrones was a goodie?
No. Oh, I said it was horribly done.
Horribly.
At the end.
Okay.
Like, I just can't. I don't even want to go back and rewatch any of it because it was so horribly ended. Well, I just can't. And I haven't even gotten a new book to go with it yet. So
here's another one. I don't know if either of you ever watched it. Breaking Bad. I thought that was an amazing show. Really? Wow. Totally watch it. They had a spinoff show called You Better Call Saul. Saul has, I think, 6 seasons now. It's a spinoff show. And people were so adamant and so desperate for more Breaking Bad, and they wanted to know what happened. Like, they were death threats to AMC and to Netflix, that Netflix ended up making a movie called El Camino. It's I think it was an hour and a half on Netflix, just as a fan service, and it was horrible. It gave a happy ending, and that's about it. And so I guess where I want to know is, are sequels and prequels and sequels something that are needed, or should we just leave something alone that is a good quality product? Like, what are your thoughts?
If there's a potential of making money, they're not going to leave it alone.
Oh yeah, no, that's obvious. No. Like, that'll never happen. But if in a perfect world, in your world, if there was only episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars, or even just episode 4, because I think you could, to an extent ish, because yes, there is the story with Vader, ended with just episode 4. But if you just could have 4, 5, and 6, would you be content, or would you still want more, or do you think there should have been more?
Well, there is more.
I know there is, but
that's okay. So one of your questions earlier was,
yes,
is all this?
I know I've asked lots of questions.
One of the things you brought up, is it a cash grab? And in some case, a sequel or a prequel is a flagrant cash grab. The Hobbit being 3 movies is a flagrant cash grab. It really should have just been 2.
Right.
Okay. But they created this character of Toriel, and they created this romance with her and Feely, and they added all of this stuff. Now, they took a lot of that out of the Silmarillion. So it's not like they just made a bunch of shit up and added it into the movie, but it was bloated, and it was unnecessary, and it became this giant CGI fight monster fest at the end. So, but the Hobbit movie, the first Hobbit movie, Unexpected Journey is fabulous. The first movie was
Love
done
it.
very well. The second one, and the third one is like, oh my God, can it just be over? Whereas The Lord of the Rings, as 3 movies, if you saw if you saw them in the theater the first time, you're like, oh my God, even though it was 3 hours long or whatever, you knew that when you watched the Fellowship of the Ring, you were not watching one movie. You were watching the first third of The Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Now,
Right.
and that was understood because they made all the movies together, and that was a big gamble. And sometimes they don't do that because they don't know if they're going to get the money, right? The Dune movie, is very clearly the first half of the first book, but they didn't know if they were going to have the funding. So Denis Villeneuve, he just made the first half of the movie, and then he was hoping that they would get greenlit for the second half instead of making the whole movie all together. Dune 2, or whatever they're going to call it, is not a sequel. It's the second half of the movie. Now, you asked if they had just made episode 4, would that have been enough? If they had only made episode 4, life would have gone on. And that's kind of how they made it. They made it to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so because Lucas didn't know if he was going to get any more money. And
Right.
Luckily he did. And so then he made Empire, and then he made Jedi, with the understanding that that's how that was going to go. Whenever there is, and this predates the internet, but whenever somebody finds something that they like, even if it's a small niche fandom, there's all this fan fiction and all this other stuff, this artwork that comes out, because there's always somebody who wants whatever the project is to go on and continue. And sometimes the sequel is better, or if they can, I don't mind a sequel if there's a story to tell. The best example to me is Aliens, right? Not the best example, but one example is Alien and Aliens. The first Alien movie is a haunted house movie in space where you can't leave the house, right? That's what it is. And it's a horror movie. The first
I will for this. I will go with this because we'll talk later. That's not what it is.
No!
Alien
That's
is
like the teacher pulling you aside at the end of class.
Alien is a horror movie. Alien is a horror movie. It's a science fiction horror movie, and it's a haunted house movie set in space where you can't leave the house. Aliens, not directed by Ridley Scott this time. Aliens, directed by James Cameron, is this military science fiction adventure movie. And it is a different movie, and it has a different story to tell, even though you still have the character of Ripley. And that had something to tell. And then Alien 3, it's kind of like, that was a flagrant cash grab.
No, it wasn't a cash grab at all.
Yeah. But it made money. So obviously somebody wanted to see it. And the first Jaws movie is Jaws. If they had stopped at Jaws is a fabulous movie, because no one wants to get in the water because they're afraid of sharks, even though they shouldn't be. But then once you start going to Jaws 2 and Jaws 3 and Jaws 4, whatever, Jaws 3D, right? Whatever the Jaws movie is. 3D? Yeah, well, they did a 3D Jaws movie.
Oh,
and
awesome.
then like the tagline for one of the Jaws sequels was, "This time it's personal." Whatever.
Oh,
I think that was the second one. That was either Jaws 2 or Jaws 4. I never saw the 3D one.
Sure. But anyway, so a sequel or a prequel can be good. Now, you asked about Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
To circle back to that. Book of Boba Fett and some of these other projects that they're doing are before Disney Plus. They are stories that would have been told in the expanded universe. They're stories that would have been told in a comic. They're stories that would have been told in a novel. But because they have Disney money, now they can make an 8-hour limited, an 8-hour series out of this. I believe that The Mandalorian has I think I read it, there's a 5-season arc that's basically mapped out.
Wow. And
so that there is a story there, just like I believe that there was a story with the Clone Wars, that Dave Filoni, when he started it, they had where they were going to go through the arc of the Clone Wars. And then when Rebels started, they had an arc of where Rebels was going to go. And so in that sense, as long as there is a new story to tell, I'm fine with it. But if it just becomes about, making money or, whatever, then maybe not so much. I watched, I mentioned Battle Angel Alita by Robert Rodriguez. I don't know if you saw that, but in 2019, Battle Angel, the Alita Battle Angel, or whatever the movie is called, is a fabulous movie. And it was set up to be a trilogy. I don't know if they're going to get the money to make the next two, but it really should. You know,
what about The Matrix? Like, how do you feel? You know, I mean, you said Resurrection, Redeemed, Reloaded, yes, and oh god, what was the third one? Revolutions.
Yes,
for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the algorithm. You make 3 movies and expecting them to get subpar, then you wait 20 years and then you make a 4th one and it redeems itself.
Well, I think in the case of Matrix Resurrections, it was going to get made.
Oh yeah.
Whether they wanted it or not, they were going to either remake or reboot the Matrix, because Sony has the rights and Sony has the money. And, you know, there was that joke in the movie that, you know, where they say, oh, well, look, the parent company, Warner Brothers, is going to make this movie whether we like it or not. So you may as well be in. It's better to make it when you, Lana Wachowski and Keanu Reeves and, you know, Carrie-Anne Moss, when you have some control over the product, as opposed to when you don't have control over that. So, you know, sometimes that's how it goes. You know, Ryan Reynolds was in the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie as Deadpool because he didn't want somebody else being Deadpool, even though that depiction of Deadpool is just awful. But he wanted to have some control over the character and how the character was depicted. And for the opening scenes where Ryan Reynolds is Wade Wilson, he's actually pretty funny and he's pretty in character. And then then everything else goes on within that movie, and the rest of it is just bad, you know. But I think Matrix Resurrections was going to happen whether anybody wanted it to happen or not, because there was so much money to be made when they made it. Then the pandemic comes along, and it could have done better it would have done better at the box office without COVID.
Do you think
everything would have done better?
You honestly think that movie would have done better?
Yes.
Really?
Well, at least initially.
Okay.
Because it's gonna have hype for the first weekend, and then after that, word of mouth is going to go around, and it's probably going to have, you know, a 60% drop off from the first week to the second. But I think it would have, if without COVID, I think it would have pulled in $100 million the first weekend alone. You know,
I mean, I'm not questioning your credibility or anything of that sort, but I'm curious because, like, I was interested to see it, and I when we talked last episode, you did not have high expectations, and I had higher expectations.
Well, that's a you problem.
You know what? I don't like this new year person. Sarah, you want to be my co-host? Because
are you kidding me? Like, you ask me that every time I'm on here.
I know that. I know.
Let's just do this.
He's so sassy.
Let's just do this.
Sassy.
But that's,
you're not going to get much less sass from me, though.
Right.
Like, that's just the thing.
No, you're not. But that's the thing, you know.
I have a feeling that you attract those kinds of people.
Probably.
But you know, but expectations are one of those things. And like I was talking about earlier, that's part of what people have a problem with these long-standing properties, is that they have a headcanon, or they want something, or, you know, they're a fan of.
That's kind of hypocritical, though. You built that nostalgia. You built that environment. So I am going into it with an expectation. I have to have some type of standard, because that, as the creator of said subject, whether it's a music, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, you have set that bar for me to where I have been established to go, okay, I know what I'm going to go in. I know there's going to be a dude dodging bullets. I know that there's going to be an illusion about something. You've set that, just like your Star Wars. You know there's going to be, with the exception of The Mandalorian and Book of Boba, there's going to be lightsabers. You know, there's going to be probably at least one Jedi or Sith Lord. You're definitely getting the Force and at least retrospective talk about. There's going to be androids. There's going to be some weird ass freaking vehicles of all sorts, whether it looks like a dilly bar or it looks like a freaking pizza slice, you know? All right. You have those expectations and standards. You know you're getting a theme song. So you can't give me that shenanigans, that BS over there of me having a standard when the environment has been set before me.
No, because
I'm a product of my environment, good sir.
Because here's what happens though. The person who makes that product, they have their interpretation, and that's what they're delivering. And sometimes the constraint is based on budget. Sometimes the constraint is based on what actors they can get. Sometimes it's, they have a shooting schedule. And
this is true.
And what the person who owns the rights to that property can make whatever they want. And
it's like going to an art gallery and judging the artist's art.
Yes. And you as the consumer, the story that you have written in your head might be completely different, but then you don't have the right to get pissed off when the story that somebody else has created, the artwork that they have created, doesn't match what you have created, because they are the owners of that property and you are not. If you wanted to make that, if you wanted to make that story, you should have paid Lucas $4 billion and gotten the rights to it to do it yourself.
I'll counter your standard with tolerance. I think you have a higher tolerance for something that you maybe
really love.
Yes, maybe you're passionate about. Like your standards and tolerance are different than me. Like I know the next Jurassic Park movie that comes out, the next Jurassic World, it's probably not going to be even nearly as good as it could have been. Like Jurassic World and Jurassic Park in my mind are like the only two Jurassic Park movies, because everything else after that is pretty much caca. Lost World is a soft gimme, but that's about it. And I know the next one, which is Old Dominion, which is coming out, is probably going to be garbage, but I'm going to enjoy it anyways because I like me some dinosaurs and I like seeing some dinosaurs eat some peoples. It's kind of fun. Right. But and maybe that's what we as fans need to take in consideration too there.
Right. Well, I think, for me, and I can only speak for myself, but what, a lot of people, there's always the gnashing of teeth when Star Wars does something new or does something different. And, there's always that one person who says, you ruined my childhood. No, they didn't ruin your childhood. Your childhood is fine. My childhood was 30 years ago and I had a pretty good childhood. And it's still there. And even though what exists now is different, it's not the same vision, it's not the same people. Kids growing up now, this is their Star Wars. It is not my Star Wars. They're not making Star Wars for me.
That's really, really true. Like I have a 13-year-old and he is a 100% huge Star Wars fan and he loves the old ones. But listen, the new ones, he is obsessed. Obsessed. And we're creating this new generation of fans. And they're embracing what
the old. I don't want to be in the old category with
we're stuck there. At least we're not really old like
me.
Okay,
that's right. You're not really.
Let's let the dinosaur alone. Okay, leave the dinosaur be.
I get it. I absolutely
dragon to you.
The red dragon.
Smog? Are you Smog?
He's an ancient red dragon over there.
Yeah.
You're Smog's cousin.
The gray hair, the gray scales.
I get it, and I respect that. But that Star Wars is its own beast in itself, because that is and I'm trying to be nice when I say this, 3 or 4 generations.
No, but it goes for like the series as well. Like he loves the series,
but like
just as much.
That's
not just
Star
the
Wars.
movies.
Star Wars is a cult, just like Marvel is now a cult. DC is it totally is. You right, you cannot say it's not, because Jedi is now is a religion. That is an official religion. So
that's for taxes. But to me, this is the other thing that you also
attach to church.
This is also how you have to approach big properties like this and like the MCU and Aliens or whatever. You don't have to like all of it.
Yeah.
And there are legitimate criticisms for all of it. But Star Wars as a body, Star Wars as a complete body of work, and whether you consider the EU to still be canon, Star Wars is like a salad bar, right? You go to the salad bar and you pick out the parts you like and you leave the rest.
That's true.
I learned that from Big Trouble in Little China, by the way. but that's what
That's
it
a really
is.
good analogy.
Yes, because there are people who stopped liking Star Wars after Empire Strikes Back, and then there are people, but then there are people who think when Sarah, you were talking about this. Young kids now watch the original trilogy and they're like, "Holy crap, what the hell is this? This looks awful. It's slow."
I show it to my students every year, and they're always like, "What is this?
Right.
Ow.
Right? Who's that old guy? Why is Luke so
Who's
whiny?
that lady? Why she got those things on the side of her head?"
Yes, Luke Skywalker's a Mary Sue. Oh my God. But then you put them, and you put Rebels in front of them, or you put Baby Yoda, or you put some of the new products. My stepson and we went to the midnight showing of Phantom Menace when it came out, and it was amazing. And that's his Star Wars. He was 6-7 years old at the time. That is his generation Star Wars, and so that's what it does. And and if I see something that I don't like, fine, it exists. And I let it go. Because I love Star Wars in its totality, and I don't like every single bit of it. People want to make the EU and this godsend that was just infallible and just the most awesome thing ever. No, it wasn't. There's a lot of the EU that sucks. So, like I said, you go to the salad. I go to the salad bar, and I slather everything up with ranch dressing, and I get black olives, and I get croutons, and I get diced up egg, and I leave the garbanzo beans aside, and I leave the black croutons and the French island dressing, the broccoli. No, somebody else can have all of that. Here, I want the spinach leaves, whatever. So that's how I have to approach it, and it makes my life pretty easy because I don't worry about the rage.
Is that the best way to approach every fan service then? Or I wouldn't even say fan service, but every fandom or entertainment source out there? Is that the best way to go? Like, hey, pick and choose, accept the inevitability. I'm trying to come to a wrap up with this, and the best way to look at this is, I think we've all agree it's, no matter what, it's going to be a cash grab. And if somebody has the money and that they think they're going to make money, they're going to make it. That's an inevitability. And we came in with that mentality, I believe.
Cash grab, I don't know. Some things are just flagrant cash grabs because they are intentionally well, I shouldn't say intentionally bad, because I don't think anybody ever approaches artwork and says, I'm going to make something that completely sucks. But I think that when they're done with
Sharknado, really?
Well, but that was intentionally bad.
Snakes on a plane.
But that was self-aware. Those movies were all self-awarely bad. But they were. And I think if you talk to a lot of artists, and if there are some out, whether it's a music artist making an album or whether it's somebody making a movie, you can watch some people on screen and you can see they are phoning it in because they need a new kitchen. Right? The only reason that this person is appearing in this movie is because they are contractually obligated for 4 pictures with Columbia or whoever, and they need a new kitchen, and that's how they're paying for it. But at the same time, the people who make these, the people who control all of whatever your fandom is, if it wasn't profitable, they wouldn't be doing it. Okay, the Warcraft movie exists because people loved Warcraft, and I wish they had made more, because the Warcraft movie was actually pretty good. But if they didn't think they could make money, they wouldn't do it. And then if the first one bombs, then they don't make the next 2. That's what happened with Solo, because Solo was supposed to be 3 movies. And because they didn't introduce Darth Maul at the end of Solo for no reason. It was supposed to go somewhere else, but because it only made $400 million instead of gazillions, then the second and third Solo movies with Emilia Clarke and Alden Ehrenreich and Donald Glover, they didn't happen. And so maybe that's why.
More Kira in my life.
Right. But that's what that was. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes the fandom tanks whatever the project is, and sometimes the fandom revives shows. The original Star Trek series was like that. The original Star Trek series was they shot 1 season, and then they got funding because of Lucille Ball. They got funding for a second season, and then they canceled it. And then there was this massive fan letter writing campaign in the late 60s, and they made the third season. They couldn't save it after that. But sometimes the fandom can save something, and they'll get a series moved from one network to another. But sometimes it's just who's making it. Again, I know that you're trying to wrap up, but several years. One of my favorite books.
You can never wrap up with Dave.
Never.
One of my favorite books, my favorite fantasy books, was The Elfstones of Shannara by Terry Brooks, and it was that and Dragonlance were two of the books that just hooked me into the high magic and fantasy and all that. And 40 years later, MTV gets the rights to the Shannara series, and they make a movie. They make a series called the Shannara Chronicles, and the Shannara Chronicles is bad, but it was made by MTV, so that it's going to have a certain audience. And then they didn't get a second season on MTV, and so it went to Spike. And so what happens? The budget goes down, and what happens when the budget drops and all this other stuff. So it wasn't what I liked. Now, do I still like the Elfstones of Shannara? Yes, I still read that once every couple of years just because I can. But it doesn't mean that I necessarily have to hate the TV show. But the TV show is there, and if I don't like it, guess what? I won't support it, and I won't do it. But I'm still gonna support Terry Brooks, and I'm still gonna support that series because I love it. And so I think that's to me, that's my approach to all of this is, there's some things worth raging about, but at the same time, I ultimately realize I can't control a lot of that. So you may as well just enjoy it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Wait for the next thing to come out.
Absolutely.
Sarah, I know you got to talk a lot on this. Do you have any final thoughts? This was a hey, I'm going to call this episode David Goes on a Tangent for an hour and a half.
You just might as well call all of them that, because it's Dave.
Once in a while I get in a word. Every once in a while I
pretentious,
get in a word.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I definitely agree with Dave. I think that it's like the little thing I said about going to an art exhibit and seeing an artist's work there. You can't say, well, I wouldn't have done it this way. Like, if you don't like it, don't go to the art exhibit. It's the same thing for these series, these trilogies, these prequels and sequels and all of these things that we're getting. If you're not a fan of the first couple episodes, don't watch the rest. Nobody's twisting your arm. Nobody's making you, enjoy the stuff that you enjoy and leave everybody else be. That's kind of like the mantra, I think, for most fandoms, is if somebody doesn't like something, leave them be, So just let people like the things they like.
Because the parts that you do like are still there, and you can enjoy the parts that you still like.
Exactly.
So anyway.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I want to give you mad props there. I will give you a golden star because I saw you were about to go on another tangent and you stopped yourself right there. I'm so proud of you. That was awesome.
No, he gets 2 gold stars.
I love it. No, and I would love to continue this, but we do have to wrap it up. Unfortunately, as much as I love doing these tangents, I do love this, but we got to keep it somewhat short, and then it saves some for another episode, and that's what we're all about. Sarah, I would thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us. Tell your son walking in the background, so I said hello.
The local T-Rexes back there.
But no, I would love to have you on again to actually, go on some tangents with us next time.
Absolutely.
David, as always,
do you have duct tape for Dave?
Yeah. You're the meeting leader. You can always mute me. You know that, right?
Can I mute you? I
don't know. You can't. You should be able to.
Yeah, you can. You're in charge.
I muted you both. Wait, let me unmute you. Did I unmute you both? Asked to unmute. Yeah.
I would like to see Sarah's Ahsoka when it's done, because that's a project I've been kind of watching as you post about it.
Yeah, and I would definitely want to see that.
And I would like to see Steve work with the silicone product.
Yes. We will have to sit down and talk about like the whole silicone and latex, all that, because the creature caster stuff you had, because that looks really
cool. It was amazing.
So
it's amazing. It really is.
Unfortunately, we do have to wrap it up here, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. As always, please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are listening to us on Apple, please remember to rate and review. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, so please like and follow us at DNA Pod, and on Twitter at NerdDNAPod, and on our webpage at nerddnapod.com. And as always, thank you so much. And this is DNA Podcast. Thank you and good night.